Welcome to today's podcast, which is part of Squire Patton Boggs Black History Month, where we will be discussing how the arts, and particularly for today's discussion, how theatre, can not only provide a platform for Black stories, but showcase incredible Black talent. I'm delighted to be joined by Lande Belo today, a director at Tower Theatre and Employment Council at Kantar. Lande has directed a number of plays at the Tower Theatre, including Vincent Pinnock's Mules and Leave Taking, which will be running from the 21st of September until the 1st of October. Hi, Lande, how are you?
Hi, Anjuli. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, as mentioned in the introduction, we're here as part of Squire Patton Boggs' Black History Month, and in particular, given your background, discussing how theatre can play an important part for Black stories and also for Black talent. So, it'd be great to hear a little bit about you and what Black History Month means to you.
So, I specialise in employment and labour law, and I provide tailored legal advice within a global framework and help drive business strategy. And I've worked across a variety of industries from oil and gas, finance, telecoms, technology, supply chain, and now most recently, data analytics and brand consulting. So that's my day job. For me, Black History Month represents such a wonderful opportunity to acknowledge suppressed histories and to celebrate cultural identity. And I have to say, I think it's a shame that at this point, it feels like we only get that 1 month dedicated to Black history. And Black history has not yet fallen into the stream of consciousness and is not yet accepted simply as just history. I think we're still a long way off that. And until we attain that, I think Black History Month is so very important.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned there about how being employment counsellor at Kantar is your day job. How does the role of employment counsel and being a director at Tower Theatre, and particularly being able to showcase these incredible plays that have been written by such an incredible person like Vincent Pinnock, how do you think they interact with each other? I think we've previously spoken about how creativity is such an important part of our job, and yet sometimes it feels like it's separate from
Oh,
being a lawyer.
absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, I think you attain so many transferable skills as a lawyer. I really do think it's a beautiful profession. And for me, I'm able to bring my project management skills, analytical thinking, and working with ambiguity to my directing theatre. It really is quite a challenge juggling both careers. And I do feel, you have to sacrifice something. And for me, it's usually my social life. So when I'm on a project, I generally don't have time to go out and meet up with people. So I try to get around that by roping in my friends and family on projects. The other thing I find is that if you surround yourself with a good team, then anything is possible. And that works both, as a lawyer and in theatre. And so I'm so fortunate to have a great cast and crew on this project. Everyone has a role to play and just gets on with it. And I think without that as support, I would struggle with juggling all the things that I do. But I think it really is being able to pick good people that know what they're doing and you just let them get on with it. And that really applies in all things, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how did you get involved with theatre, but specifically Tower Theatre?
So my love for theatre, I think probably dates all the way back to school. And something that I've learned along the way, I think many lawyers are actually frustrated actors. I think I've just always seen theatre as a great outlet to pursue creative and artistic endeavours. And for me, becoming a theatre director just felt like a natural progression. Um, in terms of Tower Theatre, I think as a non-professional in theatre, you get the luxury of choice and you don't have to feel obliged to take on a project. You get to do what you love, but your livelihood doesn't depend on that. And the great thing about Tower Theatre is that our shows are done to a very professional standard. It's one of the most active non-professional theatre companies in London. We put on between 15 to 18 productions a year. So there's just, you'll find a lot of variety across that. So it's a really great organisation to be with.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I came to see Mules when it was on, and it's still one of my favourite performances to have watched because obviously not only were you involved in it, which makes it automatically up there, but the kind of environment that the Tower Theatre has itself, not just the building and the people that are in it, let alone the performance. It's such a captivating environment to be in, and feels really like a community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and do you think that also plays into kind of because Mules, for example, it's quite a difficult story. Do you think having that sense of community makes it easier to tell such stories and engage with such stories?
Oh, absolutely. And this is something that's very dear to my heart. I think, especially the community we're in, and you mentioned the community spirit of Tower Theatre. I mean, it's based in Stoke Newington, which is in the London Borough of Hackney, which is one of the most diverse, ethnically diverse communities in London, and as I understand, and actually in Western Europe as well. So it is so important that we do engage with the local community. We put on shows that resonate strongly with them and stay away from all the traditional stuff that we normally put on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with tradition, but we just need to make sure that there's a nice variety and a balance, and we really are catering for the community because we're there at their behest, if you like. So without their support or buy-in, we wouldn't be able to be there. So we've really got to recognize that and acknowledge that.
Absolutely. That brings you on nicely to another topic of discussion that we've had before, about, putting on plays that already have Black people in them and showcase the stories of Black people
Mm,
rather than staging Black people or people from other, ethnic minorities or women, for example, in
mm,
roles that are traditionally about, middle class people or white people. So not necessarily a storyline or a story that can directly link to the individual that's acting or playing the
mm,
role or directing it or involved in
mhm,
the performance of it. Um, and I think Leave Taking does that quite interesting in itself, in that the book that's actually being studied is Shakespeare. And there's a bit of kind of conflict about the fact that the daughters aren't aware of their roots and they're not necessarily studying about their roots. Do you think that has an interesting kind of reflection of society itself in the play?
Oh, absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for this great question. It's such an important question. And as you say, you and I have had lengthy discussions on this. I mean, for me, there are just so many things to take away from Leave Taking. It showcases universal themes. It's such a great example of how an artist can use their art to drive social change. And I think theatre is very important for this. It's a great vehicle for this. I think Leave Taking is a remarkable piece of theatre on so many levels. It depicts different lived experiences in an unassuming and accessible way and shows how intergenerational differences have an impact on the whole immigrant experience. I mean, the great irony in the play is you have a character like Enid, very much of the Windrush generation, who came to England in pursuit of opportunities and was faced with hostility and rejection. But her way of navigating this is bringing up her London-born girls as true English women, thinking that that will be their ticket to acceptance, something she has always been denied. And unfortunately for her, the unintended consequence of this approach is that she has left her daughters ill-equipped to fend off the racism and hostility. England is all they know, but because they are othered, they will never truly be seen as English or belonging here. And the worst part of it is that they don't have another identity or culture to fall back on when they are rejected or denied access to this culture. So it's so important in that respect. And in terms of the point that you were making about showcasing the lives of Black people, I personally have been privileged enough to play all sorts of diverse characters in my acting career, including parts written for white men. And, as an actor, I see that as a wonderful challenge. And it's great for directors to try both colour and gender blind casting. However, for me, the real tipping point was being able to play a character that was written for someone who looks like me, which means, first of all, you don't have to spend time justifying why you were cast in that role. And we can move to the focus of whether your performance was credible or not. So I think whilst theatre has definitely come a long way in terms of diversity, especially with colour and gender blind casting, I believe that until we present characters written with particular characteristics in mind, then this is not proper inclusion. Because the idea is that the starting point should be a character written with a white and usually man in mind, and everyone else is fitting into that mold. In other words, instead of forcibly inserting non-white characters into roles that were written for and have traditionally been played by white actors, why not just select a play that has non-white characters in it? So that's why plays like Leave Taking are so very important.
Absolutely. And I think it also it ties into the fact that art, no matter what side you're on, whether it's that you're involved in it, so you're an actor or director, or you're involved in the staging, or you're a person who's gone to watch a theatre production, or you're looking at a piece of art, or you're listening to a piece of music,
Mm.
it's kind of a form of therapy. So
Oh,
if you don't have
absolutely.
to make those justifications and you can
Mm.
just, come to it as you are,
Mm.
it kind of takes a slight barrier away from the art as well, I think, and makes it even more enjoyable for everyone that's involved.
Yes, no, that's right. Absolutely.
And so you mentioned there as well how Leave Taking, it's a play that it showcases the black stories of the characters that are involved, and also quite eerily some of the fears and the distrust and
Mm.
insecurity that some of those characters feel, which
That's right.
predate things such as the Windrush scandal.
Yep.
Um, but it's also something that, because of the universal themes, it's something that people
Mm.
can come to regardless of their background. The mother-daughter relationships,
Hmm.
the things that affect us cross-culturally. Um, what role do you think that the arts have in kind of showcasing and celebrating Black history and Black lives, but also into like you say, inclusion and the interaction between all of the people that are, for example, in the community that come to the Tower Theatre, and how theatre can kind of combine those cultures together?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think Winston Pinnock herself, I mean, she puts it better than I ever could when she says, for her, theatre is a sort of moral conscience of a society and an arena where a society can examine itself. And she says if there's some voices that are missing from theatre, then it's in fact practicing a subtle form of censorship. And those words really resonate with me because that is essentially what it is. Because if you're only depicting very specific narratives, then you're censoring everyone else. We're not getting to hear
Absolutely.
those voices. And so it's as I said, I think theatre is a great vehicle for social activism. It is really important to seek out opportunities for the unrepresented or the unheard voice, which is why I personally focus on plays that require predominantly Black actors. I mean, of course, there are many unrepresented groups, but for me, this is a particular area that I'm very passionate about. And I'm a big fan of August Wilson because he writes about everyday characters and not heroes. And again, although his plays depict the African American experience, which again is a very specific experience, these are characters that anyone can relate to. So I see his plays, very much like Winston Pinnock's plays, as depicting the human experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you read about Leave Taking, and you read about these characters, or when you go and see the
Mm,
play, and even Mules, that is something that you come away with. It's that kind of witnessing these really, really emotional, raw experiences of these people. Um,
mm.
yeah, definitely. And so Leave Taking's actually been added to the GCSE English Literature syllabus. I think you informed me, which I think is incredible. And tying into what you said about the human experience, and also people from cross generations coming together. How important do you think that it is that Leave Taking and something of this incredible caliber, from a phenomenal female Black writer, has been added to the GCSE syllabus?
Oh, I'm so excited about this, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I hope to see more Black female writers included in the canon. I mean, for me personally, when I was at school, the only narratives we were given that depicted Black people were Heart of Darkness, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Uncle Tom's Cabin. All these novels have an important part to play, and I'm certainly not advocating that they should be removed from the canon. But I think it is important to contextualize them because they are all told from a white, European, or a Western viewpoint and do not provide the African or Black perspectives. So, if we want a more inclusive society, then we need to provide our children access to different stories depicting different people other than the usual narratives that you get. So, for instance, Black people being depicted as chattels, victims, subhuman, and so on. So, for me, this isn't just about political correctness. It's really just simply inserting back into history key parts of our collective history that have been suppressed. I mean, take the area, I mean, this isn't theatre, but in classical music, for instance, there's a long line of great Black composers who have just been edited out of history. And I mean, we're talking about composers who influenced the greats like Mozart. But the problem we have is the establishment and gatekeepers, all white men, couldn't accept at the time that these Black artists could compose such beautiful music. So we're just simply saying that, look, just insert something back in. You don't need to make things up. It's already there. The history's there. If you go out and look for it, it just needs to be presented and made more accessible.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's similar to, other, like you say, music, but photography, for example.
Mm,
That's another area where there are some incredible Black photographers who, again, have just been, like you say, edited out of history or edited out of what they're exposed to. Um, but actually they form a massive, massive part of the collaboration of lots of other people that have followed them and
absolutely.
come after them.
Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lande, and thank you for joining me today and for that really insightful discussion. I think we both know that we could probably go on for hours talking about this and Tower Theatre and the various plays that Winston Pinnock has done, including Leave Taking. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks very much, Anjuli. It's been great chatting to you. And yes, as you say, I mean, we can talk about this topic for hours, but I really do hope that the play does speak to a lot of people and resonates with people in the way that it has for me and others. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So this forms part of Squire Patton Boggs Black History Month. We've got a variety of different podcasts and other events taking place beyond the month because there's so much to fit in. And in particularly the importance of using the arts and theatre to showcase Black stories and incredible Black talent. So as Lande says, Leave Taking, it will be on at the Tower Theatre in Stoke Newington from the 21st of September to the 1st of October. And if you're able to get yourself down there to see it, I would highly recommend it. So thanks again, Lande.